Welcome back to AP World History. This is Chapter 25. We're looking at the political and economic changes in South America and Central America during the 19th century. One of the issues there'll be a number of issues that will arise after independence of these Latin American countries. Um, who and what will the government look like? These new freedoms, will they extend to everyone within the country? Will it be a brotherhood? As it turns out, in most situations in Latin America, the Creoles, the rich, are going to take control, and they're going to exert their control over the peons, the Creoles, or the mestizos, blacks, and Indians. Um, so things really don't change too much for the people at the bottom. Uh, there was some social upward mobility once the Spanish and the Portuguese are thrown out. Not as much in Brazil because it's just one monarchy for another, but in the rest of South America and Central America, there's people who have talent can rise in wealth and station. Freedom of commerce and trade is going to exist. But most of their economics in South America and Central America will be tied to Europe. Right to private property, certainly for those wealthy people who can afford it, are going to hold property. Beliefs in individual as the basis of society seems to be in principle, but not so much in fact. New nations should be sovereign, not controlled by any outside influence. The new nations should be economically viable. That is, they should be able to have a commerce to have a stable government and provide jobs for their people. New laws should be united under or new nations should be united under a set of laws, and certainly the Catholic Church, Catholicism, is going to rule the day. In fact, most of Central and South America are heavily Catholic, with the exclusion of other religions. Um, Latin America independent issues. Early constitutions imposed property and literary restrictions on voting, so not unlike the American experience, where it was pretty much white males with property who had a right to vote, and then that will later change, and there'll be a gradual change in Latin America. Creoles are caught in the middle. Sometimes they fight for independence, sometimes for royal forces, depending on how the wind blows and what's in it for them. Mestizos, class distinctions still exist. So, in that respect, it doesn't change too much in Latin America. There's still going to be the very wealthy and the very poor. Gran Colombia is eventually fragmented after the death of Bolivar, and so there'll be independent countries there. Rio de la Plata, modern Argentina. This confederation is going to break up under Martin. Chile remains independent. Peru and Bolivia flirt with union from 1829 to 1839 under Santa Cruz. But again, they will go their own separate ways. Caudillos were the military leaders. These were military dictators who controlled the army, and many of them will seize power within the Latin American countries, particularly Mexico. So with one tyrant being exchanged for another. Caudillos agreed to create some form of republican government. Division therein are the centralists. They believed in a strong central government controlled by the military leaders. Federalists believed that there should be some power granted to local states. Liberals, rights of individuals. There was certainly these people in Latin America. Attacked corporate structure of society, secular society. They tended to be anti-church, and they liked a decentralized federal government where individuals had more rights. Conservatives, on the other hand, wanted a strong central government, wanted to maintain the aspects of colonial society, that is, class structure, and they were certainly strong Catholics. Monroe Doctrine is something that's introduced by the Americans under President Monroe, which simply told Europe that they didn't want any more colonization in Latin America and Central America. It would be viewed as an unfriendly act by the U.S. British engaged in extensive trade with Latin America. In fact, they're the first government that recognizes a lot of these Latin American countries because they want to trade with them. There was something called positivism, and this was in Latin America, this was kind of an offshoot of liberalism, which said that society could be fixed through the scientific approach to solving problems. Kind of a leftover idea from the Enlightened era. Industrialism and imperialism certainly are going to create demands on Latin American products, and Latin America will export their raw materials to Europe. Mexico became a republic 1824, federalist constitution that resembles U.S. and France. Eventually, General Santa Anna will seize power in 1835, and he will again be a dictator, a military leader, autocratic. He has total control, almost like an emperor. When he becomes emperor, dictator of Mexico, the Texans who have come across the border from America to settle Texas decide that they've had enough with him. He tries to suppress the Texans. They revolt. Eventually, Santa Anna is captured, and he grants them independence. And Texas will be an independent country from this point on until 1845, when it will become part of the United States. And this shows the Mexican-Texas War. Eventually, in 1845, the Mexican government and the U.S. government will fight a war, which Mexico will lose. And the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 will give much of the southwest area, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, to the United States. This leaves a bitter taste in the Mexicans' mouth. They grudgingly give up this land for $15 million. Did they have a choice? No. Santa Anna could not return to power after the Mexican-American defeat. In terms of the political nature of Mexico, the liberals began a La Forma in 1854, which is a new constitution. Juarez is going to push for these liberal forms. There will be a civil war. Eventually, France will send Napoleon III to Mexico, or turn to Napoleon III in France for assistance. These are the conservatives during the Civil War. Because the Mexican government owes France a huge debt, Maximilian von Habsburg will take the throne, and works to keep the La Forma in place, but disliked Juarez and the liberals, so eventually he's going to be kicked out. Eventually, Maximilian, who is backed by the French government, is going to be executed. In Argentina, they're probably not going to ask too many questions about this. United Province of Rio de la Plata splits up, and there will be independent countries formed there. Liberals stress the concept of centralism in Argentina. Manuel Rosales will take power, and he will be a driving force in the government. They're not going to ask too many questions. 1853, they come up with a new constitution. The centralists appeased by guaranteed national unity through the power of the presidency over the provincial governors. Argentina becomes a republic in 1862. Certainly from 1862 to 1890, able and intelligent Argentine presidents. Domingo Sarmiento is going to be president of Argentina. Shows a picture of him there. Supporter of U.S. and Britain, a liberal, believed in education, and he believes in stability. Buenos Aires will be the capital, and the sense of liberalism will sweep throughout Argentina. 1898, the U.S. will go to war with Spain and eventually kick Spain completely out of the Western Hemisphere. The United States will acquire the Philippine Islands, islands in the Caribbean, and the Pacific, and we will pay Spain $15 million for the Philippines, which we will never annex, but it will be a protectorate. Eventually, we will get rights to build a Panama Canal, and this will happen through Teddy Roosevelt. Eventually, the Panama Canal will open in 1908. This shows a picture of the Spanish-American War. It was a short war with the Spanish. The United States flexes its muscles. Eventually, we destroy the Spanish fleets in Cuba and all the Philippines, and the Spanish government will surrender. This shows a picture of the Panama Canal connecting the Caribbean with the Pacific. And we're going to stop right there.